the synopsis of the case, let me bring up my paper really quick. So Jamie Turner accepted a marketing position at a company. He'd kind of been not really jumping around, but he had moved around a little bit before accepting this position with this one. And at first it sounded great. He moved to Chicago. He was able to do well. He was even noted as the their star or whatever when they talked to that. But then he started having some different issues with his manager, and things went sour from there, and he didn't feel like he was trusted anymore. And his manager just seemed to get more and more negative. So at the end of this, he's trying to, he's about ready to meet with him, Cardulo? I don't even know how to say that. Going to meet with him and try to discuss things and work things out. So, is there anything else that I kind of missed there? I know that I just kind of glazed over it.
I think that's pretty much the gist. I got that, he was kind of lost, not knowing exactly where to go. So
yeah, wasn't given really clear direction there.
Yeah.
Daniel's trying to get in, but it's not working.
Uh-oh. That's odd.
There he is.
There he is. Hey, Daniel.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't letting me join.
You're there.
It kept giving me something about not connecting, and then I would try again, and then it wouldn't connect, and then I would try again, and it wouldn't connect. So finally, I just closed everything and started over.
Yep. Turn it off and back on again.
Sometimes that helps.
So Daniel, just to catch up, we had the prayer, and we just kind of, I went over the brief synopsis of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, from what I remember, he wasn't really given clear direction on what he was supposed to do, what he was responsible for. He liked that he was given full autonomy, but that seemed to go away quickly within the 6 months that he was there, just because his boss didn't agree with some of the decisions that he made, something like that. So, anyone else have miss anything on that? Okay, so what do you think the root problems of this case is?
It's easier to talk when you're unmuted. That's what we got to kind of talk about, I think, is why did the boss change so much towards him?
Yeah.
What did he do? What could he have done differently, or what did the boss could have done differently?
I think that there was lack of communication, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And someone not understanding what the expectations are, maybe.
Yeah, because I think if we talk about the boss, Cardulo, he's kind of an interesting guy.
Yeah.
He's very intelligent because he can remember everything. He is, he's good with people when he wants to be, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But he's very cut and dry. Didn't it say somewhere he thought you were either incompetent? If you're either competent or incompetent, you should be fired. It's like black and white.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling that's probably linked a lot to how much you agree with him. If you don't agree, you're incompetent.
And it seemed that he had a bit of a temper too, because he would lash out at people during meetings and things like that, and kind of yell and scream and not really make any meaningful contributions with that. But I seem to think that, he was divided between the Chicago office and the San Diego office, and went there every other week. He was at one or the other. And so I think that he really was
I
spread
thought it was.
too thin and was trying to really
I thought he
control
was
every.
in one place half a week.
What's that?
I thought it was like every 3 days.
Something like that. Yeah, it was a lot. But trying to manage two different divisions that are so far apart and wanting things to go your way, but at the same time trying to say that you're giving your managers autonomy. It's definitely not carte blanche autonomy. But how did Turner get himself into the predicament? What did he? What could have he done differently?
I'm looking for one time because there's a time when they're in a meeting and the boss was making a point, and he kind of looked at Turner and said, "Isn't that right, Turner?" And Turner's like, "No, you're wrong." Didn't I? I can't try to find that. That was in here somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where he said he could see both sides or something.
Yeah, he basically didn't really support him in the meeting, and I think that didn't go over very well.
Yeah, yeah. But I think even from the beginning, he kind of found reasons why he would take the job that weren't necessarily ones that would last. I mean, that couldn't be really guaranteed. But having the, I think he liked the thought of not having to report to somebody on every little thing and having the autonomy. And I think that was huge for him. But the actual work itself, he wasn't very excited about. And he already knew that he was going into a company that was struggling financially. And because Cardullo was pretty upfront with that during the interview. And I just think that Turner could have done a lot more research into things and got more answers and clarification on things before even accepting the job.
Yeah, see, like I'm reading this one paragraph about Cardullo. It's like Dennis, who's in charge of the inventory, they set the warehouse up for it to be automated. And Cardullo is not seeing that. He's old school. He says,
Yep.
The computer systems are only as smart as the people who use them. He grew furious with Dennis and turned to Turner for support. Put on the spot, Turner responded that he didn't see a problem with either alternative.
Yeah.
But the real issue was the incremental cost it would raise from the change order. Cardullo ordered Dennis to change the system within the month. So Cardullo is kind of, he's not very open to suggestions. It's kind of his way or the highway.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I totally understand that view. I mean, not being that type of person, but having
Which
to
is
deal with a boss that's like that. Yeah, it's frustrating.
Go for it.
I've got to think of a way in my current situation. Our owners pay for an electronic medical record that they're not utilizing all of the components of, because the boss is used to doing it his way, like a kind of an older, antiquated paper way of tracking visits and exercises and things like that. He's being charged for an exercise program that can be interactive with the patient. They can log on at home. He can get feedback about how they're doing their home exercise. That really has a big effect on how fast they heal and recover. But he doesn't want to utilize it because it's new. It sounds different. It's too big of a hassle. Anyway, so I don't know. I can kind of see how that's frustrating of somebody who's just not open to new things. I don't know. That was my only point.
I totally agree. I feel like I was reading a biography of me. In my work situation. It's interesting though. It sounds like we've all have bosses like this, but of course none of us are ever a boss like that. I don't know.
Nope. Yeah, I struggle sometimes in my my job. I work better with physical paper instead of just the files in the computer, which are much more reliable and easier to get to and efficient and all that. But when I'm working on something, I'd much prefer to print it out and do things by hand and then put it back in the computer, just because can't get over old habits sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that I can see, but one of the problems that you end up with paper, they're called flow sheets, and they track exercises and progression. But one of the problems is you have to have a name on there. Now, is that HIPAA compliant?
Yeah.
It's out there in the gym in the open. Anybody walking by can read the first name. Well, we just try to put the first name and last initial, but those kinds of things I worry about. That and like a sign-in sheet, those kinds of things that are old school that maybe aren't up to the new laws and regulations.
Yeah. Well, and then back to Cardulo, I think one of the things that's going on with him is he's part of a company that he's been with for quite some time. He's getting pressure that he needs the company to be better financially, in a better financial position. And so he's trying to do what he's done in the past to be able to move the company forward and do better financially. And he wants to have things his way because he knew that at one time it worked that way. And so I could see his perspective a little there, but at the same time, it's not the same world as it was then, I guess. That maybe I'm speculating too much, but it's kind of my thoughts on why he would be doing that. He's definitely got the stress of the two divisions, and then having the financial issues as well.
See, in Cardulo, so he's got his. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think probably one of the biggest struggles for him is like he kind of wrote himself out of the book. When he first hired Turner, he told him, you basically have free reign. Like, you just do what you do. I believe in my managers running their own division and doing it their way. And then all of a sudden he wants to be highly involved and have it a certain way. And it's just a complete 180. And so I think with that initial mindset, like, it's great that he wants people to think for themselves, but he kind of just like wrote himself out and said, I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm just going to supervise.
Yeah.
That's my 2 bits.
I think it's very rare to have a boss who actually is completely hands off. Here, you do it.
I was gonna say that. So where's the line between oversight and micromanage? Like, you have to okay everything, every decision, or just oversee and approve things. That's my question: is what how do you make those two different things?
So I think you have to look at results. If the results are coming, you don't worry about how they're getting there too much. But if you're not getting results, then you got to find out why.
If you go back to your 7 habits, and I realize there was a lot of stuff in that book, but one of the things Covey talks about is levels of initiative. I don't know if you remember reading that at all, but that's one of the things that you can determine and stipulate and agree to at the beginning of some task or project or whatever. And he did that with his son when he was teaching him how to take care of the yard. Remember that story?
Yeah.
And he talked about, who was going to judge his work, how often they would check it, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've got a chart in one of my notebooks somewhere. There's like 4 different levels of initiative. The one end of the spectrum would be, okay, as soon as you do it, you call me and have me come and check it. That's kind of the micromanage end of it. And then the other end of the spectrum would be every month or quarter, please report to me on how well you did on this project. And then there's stuff in between. So that can be determined and set up from the get-go with somebody on a project or some kind of responsibility that's being put into place.
I like that, actually.
So it depends on your, it's really operationalizing your level of trust with the person you're dealing with. If you don't have a lot of confidence in them because you haven't worked with them much, or based on experience and they've been kind of flaky, then your level of initiative is going to be, hey, as soon as you get something done here, check with me so I can see it was done right. If you worked with somebody a lot, know their competency, trust their character, it might be one of these things, bring me up to speed every so often, let me know how you're doing. And then everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. So what did Cardullo and Turner bring to the situation at MLI that would ensure success from the beginning?
Well, it kind of seems like, see, I think the boss guy could be easy to manipulate if you used him right. Thank you.
That's
right. My battery's going to die. My wife just brought in my charger. It seems like he could be easy to manipulate. You just have to play him right. It's like,
that's Cam's.
You just make it his idea. You bring him ideas and say, here's this and this and this.
Cam's.
And then just try to get him to pick the right one, I guess.
Yeah.
See, with me, I think trying to convince the boss to move to like a more time efficient, actually more accurate tracking of health progress as well for the patient, and ease of use for the patient. I'm going to have to do like it in black and white, down on paper. This is how much you're outlining every month in paper and time, and for your employees to do this. And this is how much you're paying for a program you're not utilizing. And these are the benefits. So I think that's what it's going to take to get him to at least look at it. He won't even look at it at this point, but
yeah, you got to get him data or something.
I have to. It's got to be on paper in black and white for him.
Yeah. We all got quiet.
Yeah.
All right. So what did they bring for success? That was the question, right? Did we ever answer that question?
Not really. I think initially bring to the situation. I mean, definitely they brought knowledge, but I mean that's kind of a given.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Turner could have utilized his time with Cardullo a little bit better than he did initially, and to ensure his success. So I don't know if this is really answering the question or not, but if Turner had suggested and requested, can we just, because he wasn't familiar with this, I think it was lighting that they were working with, and bulbs and things. But if he had taken the time to really, meet with Cardullo every so often, say, hey, let me pick your brain to learn the business a little bit more, what you're expecting, things like that. I think that things might have turned out a little bit differently, but to be just told from the beginning, go ahead and take this and run with it, didn't help. And then when he was asked to let some of the employees go that he didn't agree with, I think more discussion there could have been had with, reasons why and how can I understand where you're coming from so I can, however that would go. But so yeah, and there would have been a discussion to start with of, if I have full autonomy, why are you telling me to fire somebody? Is that how it's going to work, or and get more detail on what really his management capabilities were at that point.
So I finally found the sentence I've been looking for because I couldn't think of how it was stated. That was really great because the next part of this is about what they brought their failure. So that was right in line with our question anyways. But on the success side, when Turner initially interviewed with Cardulo for the job, one line that stood out to me was, it seemed strangely unnecessary for Turner to score points with Cardulo really well initially. Like, they connected, they were interested in each other's lives, and it was a good sign for a good business relationship that they'd be able to work well together. And I think that was probably one of the selling points, even though the company may not have been in a strong spot, that they would be excited to work together and able to push forward with a bright future and coming up.
Yeah.
We kind of missed the very first part of what you said because you froze, and it left me like great suspense to find out what you were going to say. Honestly, so repeat the very first part.
I've been struggling with that all night, so I know how you feel. So I was talking about Cardulo and Turner's interview at the steakhouse, and how it says that Turner didn't feel like he needed to score points with Cardulo to like feel like he fits in and is a good spot, and they were just able to connect really quickly and get along well. They were interested in each other's lives. They were setting themselves up for a great partnership to work together. So
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Cool. So what about the failure? What did they bring that would set them up to fail?
I think that's easier to talk about.
Right?
The thing about Cardulo, he seems like he's like hot and cold. Everything about him's hot and cold. Like in the beginning, he gave Turner complete autonomy to the point where he felt like he had too much, and then he clamped down and gave him no autonomy. He's like, I think he's just not consistent. He's just back and forth.
Yeah.
Which makes it difficult to work for somebody like that.
So something that came to my mind was, seek first to understand. So maybe they both need to kind of try to understand where the other person's coming from, maybe. How do you say his name? Cardulo? Why is he like that? What, maybe there's just extreme stressors he's dealing with, or
Yeah.
he's getting, pressure from the top or something.
Yeah. One thing I noticed when Turner finally gets the chance to talk to him when they're on the plane ride to San Diego, he mentions that he's able to finally get out what some of his frustrations and what he wants to do and all these other things. But it doesn't mention him listening to Cardulo or to Cardulo saying anything. It just says that he felt that Cardulo finally was listening to him. But at the same time, I don't know if Turner's really listening to Cardulo and what's going on in his world of things to be able to fully understand what he can do to better help the company at that point. I definitely think that there needs to be a give and take there, and not just a take on Cardulo's part, because there's something else going on there that I don't think that it's necessarily just his personality that would cause him to do a full 180, but there's something going on that Jamie needs to figure out. And that's only going to take communication going both ways.
Yeah, like Cardulo's motivation may be completely different because he's got his eye on the next position up, so he may be looking for short-term profits at the sacrifice of long-term stockholder wealth. He's Yeah. Turner needs to figure out where he's coming from. He needs to talk to him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that leads right into the next bullet point, or what were the key choice points where either of them could have done things differently. Definitely communication up front.
So I was just gonna say, one of my biggest questions about all of this is the company. It mentions, I don't remember exactly where, but it mentions that the company told Cardullo that they wanted him to be there full time, and then Cardullo basically said, "No, I'm going to go half and half a week here, half a week here." And I have a hard time believing the company just really let him have that extra stress of trying to run two different things in two very different places that would require a lot of his time in both places, and not trying to change that, or just like, no, you will be here and they'll be okay, or you will be here and you can video chat and discuss as necessary with the people over here. I think that it's not them particularly, it's the company in general, but I think that's a big point.
Well, and I think that it's kind of ironic that they had said that the division in San Diego didn't really need him to. I mean, he could still be kind of over it. They weren't going to replace him as the division head or whatever, but that he didn't have to be there all the time because they're somewhat autonomous and can do things on their own, which is ironic. He's saying that he wants Jamie Turner to be sort of on his own and be able to do his own thing, and yet you can see from the beginning that he's not really willing to let anything out of his control. He wants to still have that control over San Diego as well as Chicago, even though he's been told that he's not really necessary in San Diego.
Yeah.
So what could Turner have done differently?
I was going to say maybe that's because San Diego doesn't really run smoothly without him, but it gives the impression that it's autonomous, but it's really not.
Yeah. Don't know.
What question would Catherine ask Cardullo with regards to the split loyalty? And I'll give you a hint. This has to do with a discussion question.
Anyone?
See, the question that comes in my mind is where is his loyalty? Is he result oriented? Is he worried about himself, or is he worried about the company?
You remember?
And another thing is,
go ahead, Daniel.
I was just gonna say, why is he insistent on having both and like being at both places when he could easily focus his attention on one?
Do you remember one of the discussion questions about team, your personal team?
I'm looking for it right now.
So are you referring to the discussion prompt of the most effective and efficient means of maintaining high standards of performance on a team is peer pressure? So conflict?
No, that's a good one, but that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking about it has to do with loyalty. It has to do with where your focus is.
Yeah.
So I don't have it in front of me, but the question was, or the comment was, who's your first team?
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yep.
Who's your first team? And it sounds like, or at least you can read into this, that maybe there's a wrestling match going there with Cardullo on. Who's his first team?
Yeah. Well, and wasn't there a comment that he had made to Turner at the beginning that there wasn't really a need for, like the marketing department didn't need to know what the other department was doing. It was kind of, you do your own thing, they do their own thing, and there's not much teamwork or cooperation there. And so that kind of feeds the, your loyalty is just there and not to the team as a whole.
Right.
So with him, it's different level too, where he's split and doesn't have loyalties to one or the other, just wanting to see the financial success. So then what should Turner do? How should he approach Cardullo when they're at this lunch that they're trying to get together at? Because Cardullo's been avoiding him. He's been wanting to talk to him for different things and canceled meetings, and finally is able to talk to him at a lunch meeting. So what should Turner begin with?
See, I think you should play to Cardullo's ego. You should like apologize and say, "I'm sorry, it seems we got off the wrong foot," you know, and tell him, ask him for suggestions, and somehow he's got to patch up the relationship. That's just what I thought.
Well, and I think it's important for him to also state that, you know, in the polite ways, I may have misunderstood when I first started here that I thought that these things were going to be my responsibility. If they're not, that's fine. I just need to know what and really ask what the expectations are at this point, and then what Cardullo would like him to do moving forward. And I think that as well as playing to his Cardullo's ego and saying, "Hey, I know that you're the boss. I know that, you know, it's your way. So just, you know, maybe tell him what his way is, so he can better do the job that he's supposed to do."
I'm always one that believes in just not being confrontational, but just not tiptoe around things. I would say, I feel like we're like off on the wrong foot here. I want to make you successful. I want to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I've got your back, you know?
Yeah.
And just figure out how to make that happen.
I think the main point of it is just not make it confrontational to the point where it's aggressive and saying, "Well, you told me all of these things and now this is happening." So yeah, I that's not going to get anybody anywhere, but seeking first to understand and doing it that way is for me a much better approach than being accusatory.
There's a company in Michigan called Menlo Innovations, and their CEO is a guy named Richard Sheridan, and he's a real interesting guy, very creative leader, and he is built in, and this is a software development company. So you wouldn't think of them in the context of warm and fuzzy, right? I mean, they're software development engineers, etc. Not to paint with too broad of a brush, but anyway, he's built into the culture from the bottom up or the top down, however you want to look at it. Basically, what you folks have already talked about, this idea of seeking first to understand. And that he says that one of their operating principles is that if there's a difference of opinion, if there's a conflict, if there's a problem, that you get together with the person or persons that, you know, the issue is around, and you begin the discussion with this question. And every time he says, this is the starting point of every meeting, and that is everything okay?
Yeah.
You know, is everything okay? And so what's the assumption, or there's probably more than one, but what are some of the assumptions behind that question?
That he cares.
Things are never all okay.
Okay, yeah, and that the person that asked the question cares.
Yeah.
What
Well, and then the
else?
next question after that can be, now what can I do to help?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, it's an invitation to you know, make things right, make things better,
Yeah.
improve things. And you know, one of the other assumptions behind that question might be, if there must be something going on for this guy to be acting like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe his dog died, or you know, there's problems at home, or you know, maybe he's just got a diagnosis from the doctor, or you know, there must be something else happening here. That's not always the case, but it could be. So,
That reminds me of a conference talk, you know, that recently that just talked about everybody going through a crisis. When you know, home teaching companion was with, they were visiting homes, and I don't remember exactly who gave it, but basically the premise is we probably hear about 30% of the issues or struggles that people go through. A lot of people keep a lot of it to themselves. So you should treat, you know, everyone as if they were going through a crisis.
yeah.
Most likely they are of some sort.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, think about your own life. You know, most of us have issues that we're dealing with that are distractions and or more, and that affect us in one way or another. President Monson, I've got a little quote here from him that one of the other students brought up that I thought was applicable. It said, never let a problem be solved, never let a problem to be solved become more important than a person to be loved.
I remember that one.
And I think that's I've heard it stated a different way. I've heard it stated, there's a big difference between putting your nose in somebody's business and your heart in someone's problems. And I think one of the key factors there is, you know, where is your heart when you ask that question? Is everything okay? Is it a rhetorical question, or are you really interested to know what the situation is? And people can usually tell the difference.
Yeah.
Are there very many companies that actually operate like that?
Not very many.
I was going to say, because every place I've ever worked is so opposite of that. They don't really care. They just want the job done quickly and efficiently and at the lowest price. They don't care if your dog died or you had a bad day.
But in your circle of influence, you can still do that.
Yes. Yeah.
I think with my job, the you know, corporate office may not care as much, but I think that I work with a lot of good people that that do care about those kind of things and are genuinely concerned. And yeah, I want to make sure that everybody's there. Okay, I've even had the division president call me in and just to chat, see how things are going. You know, I wasn't necessarily having a bad day that day. He just wanted to make sure that everything was going good at home and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there are good office spaces, at least, if not good entire companies.
My thing is, can you imagine if most companies were like that? If that was the norm rather than, it being the exception?
Yeah.
I think that's something we could probably still strive to do in our own lives.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I'm looking, okay, in my circle, like, yeah, I oversee some people, but I know like upper management sometimes gets frustrated with me because they think that I'm too nice of a guy, and that I don't get things done because I don't basically command people, order people around. So, I don't know.
Well, and that's a good point because a lot of managers, leaders associate that approach with being soft. But if you peel the onion, it's not necessarily being soft. So that's kind of a myth that's alive and well that people cling to, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Because like if I look at what I get done just as much. Or sometimes they might get more done for a few days, and then the employee slips back to where they were and resents the way they were treated. Where if you can, bring them along and get them to want to do the job, then it lasts much longer.
Right.
Yep.
I could see people maybe being threatened by the fact that, if you're people that are under you like you more because you don't, yell at them to do this or that. That might be threatening, maybe.
That's probably a good point.
Could be in some cultures.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think even in very demanding cultures, sooner or later that heavy-handed stuff catches up with you. And I remember I had a boss who, this guy was a high performer, and he exceeded expectations on everything. But when it came to the point of him getting a promotion to a significantly higher level, the critique came back to him. You're good at what you do. You meet all your numbers. You exceed expectations. The problem is there's dead bodies lying all over the place when you're done, and we can't have that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because like the person who I'm number 2 at the company, and the number 1 guy is just he's very domineering, and he leaves dead bodies on the way. I would never want to be like that at all. And also he complains constantly that no one can make a decision. He has to make all the decisions. And I look at him and go, that's because if someone makes one, if it's not, even if it had a successful outcome, if it wasn't the way you would have done it, you just lay into them. Right. So everybody just stops and it's not, I'm making a decision. It's what do I think this boss wants me to do?
Sounds like Medulo.
Yeah. There's a joke. His name's Joe. So it's like, WWJD. What would Joe do? That's the joke. So anyways.
Funny.
Wow, we kind of got off topic, didn't we?
Well, that was on topic.
Yeah.
Right topic. But yeah, I think we got through those. For me, that's any last comments?
I've got one last comment. I've been really quiet, and I'm just soaking everything in. And this might be because I'm the young guy who has a young child, and is brand new to life and adulthood and everything. But I want to throw a bone out there to just remember to apply all this into our families, because everything we've talked about, whether it's about business or teamwork or anything, it goes down to what doesn't allow kids to successful, then we need to start using these principles now, even if our kids are 30 or if they're 5 months. And I think it'll just change a lot for how our family operates together and the amount of love that will be felt when there's family reunions and what you get to see in your grandchildren and so forth. So just throwing it out there.
Well, that's a great reminder, Daniel. And one of the things I love about this class, this course, is pretty much everything we study in here and learn, you can use in your family. You know, you can use in your life. And that's good. I love that.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I was just going to say that, I've appreciated that. I've learned a lot, especially from Stephen Covey and his book. You know, really resonated with me with, sharpen the saw, those kinds of things, and applying them to my family life. So.
Yeah, I really love the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team book. I don't have much time to sit and read, so I usually listen to audiobooks as I'm driving to and from work, and so that's kind of how I got it. But it was also interesting to me too because it took place in the area that I'm from in Northern California. I'm in Utah now, but I'm from Northern California, so I could picture all the places that they were, and I think that visualizing things when I'm, driving is a little bit more difficult sometimes. So it was really nice that was kind of already in my head of where they were and being able to visualize them sitting around the table and going to the whiteboard and putting up their thoughts and things like that. And so I really looked for those different dysfunctions and how to get over them within my own job. And I really, I liked how those all kind of fit and learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd almost buy a copy for everybody at work and make them all, and I'll read it and then discuss it.
No kidding, right?
But I could not push that through. It would not fly.
Yeah. I was going to say, our boss has decided that we're going to be reading a book and like going over a chapter every month for a couple minutes in our management meetings. But I wish we could do this one and then Stephen Covey, honestly. But this one is, what's it called? Crucial Conversations is the one that he wants to do. Yeah. Are you familiar with that one?
I am a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
my last job, they only had us read Who Moved My Cheese, and that was nice, but I don't think it really dived in too much to the inner workings of our department at that time.
Well, if we're giving book recommendations, I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, read anything that's been put out by the Arbinger Institute, Leadership and Self-Deception, Anatomy of Peace, The Outward Mindset. That the first 2 are written like 5 Dysfunctions. It's kind of a story with characters. So it would be interesting to listen to on your trip to work.
Definitely.
And the third one is more of almost like a case study thing based on, real life stuff. But I have a personal bias toward the Arbinger folks, and it's very complimentary to the 7 Habits as well. So,
say the name of the publisher or the book.
It's the Arbinger Group, ARBINGER Group.
Okay.
And
does the Anatomy of Peace have like a setting of parents that are like in a classroom? Okay, I think I've read it, but it's been a while.
Yeah, they actually are. They're in the desert. They've taken their son to a rehabilitation program for troubled youth. And most of the discussion takes place in that spot. So, and and if you've read it, either those first two books, I think, are in their second editions where they've added a little more material. So if you're going to get them, make sure you get the most recent edition. Outward Mindset's the one that's most recent. It's 2 or 3 years old, maybe a little older.
Yeah, I just pulled that up on my phone. Outward Mindset is on top.
Yeah, you'll like it.
Yeah.
Any questions about next week? It's the final week for us.
Thank you
For the accountability project.
I'm like, if you just want to give me a rundown, because
I saw your email. That was pretty helpful. I think we just answer all those questions, right?
Yeah, I just copied most of what's on the instruction page in lesson 14. But the key points are to answer those questions or those prompts in a written form, and you will post those like you would a case study, but also make sure you meet with your group and make a presentation to each other about your experience with your accountability project, answering those prompts or those questions. And it can be as plain or fancy as you want it to be. Some people want to do PowerPoints and all that stuff, and you can if you want, or you can do it very simply. Just the main thing is to cover those main points.
Okay.
When do we want to? When should we meet next week?
I was going to say, I hope to be in Pocatello Thursday and Friday. So, I mean, not Pocatello, but Rexburg. So,
I'm going to be in Hawaii on Thursday. So,
okay. So, well, I might rather be in Hawaii, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is Wednesday possible, or I could even do Tuesday? That doesn't give us many days, but I mean, it doesn't. It kind of shortens it a bit, but I'm okay with whatever.
I'm good with Tuesday or Wednesday. That's fine.
Daniel, how about you?
I would prefer Tuesday over Wednesday.
Okay. To have something else on?
I can be ready by Tuesday. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let me know. Email me the new time and date.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Who's sending out the link next time?
I think I'm up.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
All righty.
Well, hang in there. 1 week to go.
Yeah.
I'm white knuckling it.
Yeah. Is there really a white knuckle?
Well, no, just a little bit of angst with my healthcare finance class, but I find that testing on Proctorio a little difficult sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what gives me angst, is the time limit, trying to get, like the balance sheets and everything done, but because you have to type it all in there anyway. But we'll be good. That'll be good.
All right.
I've enjoyed it though.
Yeah.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week.
right.
We'll send emails around and let us know about Tuesday night.
All right.
Okay. All right. I'll stop this broadcast and I'll upload it on in the discussion board.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.